mental.
I thought I'd learn Greek once, and I thought, well, I'll get myself a Greek text. And what did it say? Translated from the King James Version. I thought I'm going in circles.
Indeed, indeed. So there are the Septuagint was translated basically from the original Hebrew, and you've got the Septuagint. There is the accepted, the common edition is what's known as Ralph's edition, and you've got translations of the Septuagint into English. There is the older translation, which was done by Sir Lancelot Brenton, and there is a new English translation of the Septuagint, which is known by the acronym NETS, New English Translation of the Septuagint, NETS. And sometimes it's very interesting. So, for instance, in the course I'm about to start in a few weeks about the Book of Jonah, when the people are, you can invite them. It would be interesting for them. I promise not to use too much Hebrew, if you want, you know. Yeah, come on, ladies. We'll do something interesting. I promise not to bore you. And if you're bored, you can always say, "Ah, we're bored. We're going away." So I was just talking a little bit about the Hebrew versus the Greek. So here you've got, right. Have you ever heard of Yale University, guys?
Yes, university, sorry.
Yale. That's one of the most famous universities in America. And its emblem, as you can see here on the top left-hand side, has Hebrew and Latin. Okay. In the Hebrew, it reads, you can read the Latin because you actually might actually know it. It's not that complicated Latin. Lux et veritas. Do you know what that means in Latin, guys?
Veritas is true.
Right, veritas is true. That is veritas. That is true. Right. Truth is veritas. Trust but verify. Right. We say in English, trust but verify. Okay. To verify is basically to make sure something is truth. Right. So you can see veritas, and lux is light. Right. You've heard of Lucifer. The bringer of light. So it's the same word. Lucifer is the Lucifer, basically bringing light. In any case, the reason I've mentioned it is because I've mentioned the Septuagint and the English translation of the Septuagint. Here we have that new English translation of the Septuagint on the right-hand side, and that is the verse that I'm discussing here is 1 Samuel 14:41, which deals with one of the very interesting things in the Hebrew Bible, and that is casting lots. The Book of Jonah, this is a discussion this is a verse that is taught alongside Jonah. Jonah 1 verse 7 talks about casting a lot, right? So we have casting lots in the Hebrew Bible. So is casting lots like scratching a scratch card? What is the idea of casting lots, and what kind of lots were used in the biblical times? So the most famous kind of divine mechanism for finding out the truth was the Urim and the Thummim, which is translated here in the emblem of Yale University as light and truth, because the word or in Hebrew means light, or, as in Urim, and Thummim is related to Tamim, blameless. Okay, Tam is blameless, perfect. So they translated Urim and Thummim as light and truth. However, we don't know much about the Urim and the Thummim and how they were used from the Hebrew sources. But luckily in the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew text. Sometimes elements that were not preserved in the Hebrew text were preserved in the Greek, not that many times, but sometimes. And here in this verse in 1 Samuel 14, we get a better picture of what happens, or how the Urim and the Thummim were possibly used, okay, in ancient Israel, okay? And the use of the Urim and the Thummim was probably for a little bit like yes, no questions, or binary options, or dichotomous questions, when you have two options, okay? And this is here in the Septuagint reflected in the English, in the Greek, and then translated in the English. I'm not getting into it too much, but you can see how, first of all, I'm just talking about the English, okay? So this is the English translation for the Hebrew of 1 Samuel 14:41 here, and you can see it's fairly short. And here is the translation for the same verse, but in the Greek. Just without, before reading it, you can see the difference in the length, right? You can see that the verse translating the Greek is longer than the one translating the Hebrew, because in the Greek we have a completely different story, okay? And really all of this part between the red words Israel and Israel is gone from the Hebrew, okay? Sometimes when we have similar words in the text, especially if both of them are at the end of the line or at the end of two lines, the I can jump from one word to another. Now, if I were to ask you ladies to take a notebook of one of your friends and just copy everything that is there, how many mistakes would you have done, right? We are human. We make mistakes. We look at sometimes we start reading a line, we jump to the next line. It happens. And so possibly what happened here is exactly that. The word Israel repeated twice, and whoever copied the Hebrew possibly skipped from the first Israel to the second Israel. And so he didn't copy what is in the middle. And what was in the middle gives us a little bit of an understanding of how the Urim and the Thummim worked. Okay? Do you want to read the English translation, New English translation of the Septuagint? Here, let's, who wants to read? Maureen, anyone wants to read the English? Just English, don't worry. Not hooking you on Hebrew or Greek at the moment.
Therefore Saul said to the Lord, the God of Israel, give a perfect lot. And Jonathan,
Yeah. So here, starting at the beginning of the verse, and Saul said,
O Lord God of Israel, why is it that you have not answered your slave today? If this guilt is in me or in my son Jonathan, O Lord God of Israel, give clear ones. And if this is what you say in your people Israel, give now holiness. And Jonathan and Saul were indicated by the lot, and the people were cleared.
Right. So everything between the first Israel up to the second Israel is gone in the Hebrew text. If you read the first one, therefore Saul said to the Lord, O God of Israel, and then it skips to give now holiness in the Greek, or give a perfect lot, possibly. Again, the reason is the tamim, the word tamim, which possibly was tumim. It's the same letters. Okay, and Jonathan and Saul were indicated by the Lord. Again, Jonathan and Saul were taken. Okay, that's basically to be indicated by the Lord, is the a verb here in Hebrew that means to be captured. And the people were cleared, the people went out. That's the same. So you can see what happened here and how the verse in the Septuagint is different than the Hebrew version. Can you see that, everybody? Very good. Now, the verse in the Septuagint possibly goes back. The word clear ones is probably Urim, like light ones. Urim. And this is Thummim, holiness, Tamim, okay, blameless. And so this is possibly the Urim and the Thummim were used to adjudicate between two options in a dichotomous way, right? Option one, option B. And this we only know by the retroverting into Hebrew of the Septuagint, of the Greek translation of the original Hebrew text, because that part of the verse was gone and did not preserve in the Hebrew version. Now, ladies, I know that you're not like always reading both the Hebrew and the Greek, so you should know it doesn't happen that much, but this is an interesting example. So you said you're going to talk about Paul, and we got through to delivering Hebrew through Greek, or Hebrew ideas through Greek, and that is an interesting example, which I thought would be interesting to know. So that's